I'm not a blues player, but I'm plugged into one of the most legendary blues rigs of all time. Will it make me love blues? Now, for anybody who has actually clicked on this video who is a blues player, you'll no doubt recognise this guitar. This is the brand new Gibson Custom Shop Eric Clapton 1958 Les Paul Custom, and this thing rocks. Look at that. That thing just is absolutely amazing. I'm always a big fan of 3-pickup Les Paul Customs, and safe to say this one is absolutely stunning, but these are limited to 150 of them worldwide. It's one of the rare guitars that they have been releasing for the past little while in very limited numbers, and certainly for any super fan of Eric Clapton or Albert Lee, which I will mention in the story of this guitar, then anybody who is a huge fan of either two of those guitarists will know exactly what this is. But instead of this simply being a bit of a walkthrough through this guitar, I wanted to kind of like give it a little bit of a different kind of swing for this. Because anybody who is a fan of the Guitar YouTube channel, and if you've not subscribed already, you can click the link just below and you can keep up with all the latest news that we got coming out of the studio. You'll know that I'm not particularly blues coded. It's never been the kind of style of music that I've ever really gravitated towards, and it's not really anything that I play that much. I can appreciate it, but certainly it's not my number one when it actually comes to guitar playing. When this guitar arrived, I thought I'd give myself a little bit of a challenge. I wanted to hook up kind of a vintage kind of Clapton / Cream rig. Obviously the guitar really helps, but we're also going through this hand-wired Marshall GMP amp here as well, which gives me the absolute fear because all it's got is a volume and a tone and no reverb. I've added that all in just to give me a little bit of a blanket. But I've also got the brand new Dunlop Eric Clapton Gold Wah-Wah pedal as well. And I want to see if this will convert me to the Church of Blues. But before I talk about any more about the guitar, I think it's time for some tones. Apologies for anyone who actually thought there was going to be some exceptional blues playing in this, but there's something to be said about, you know, kind of going through this sort of rig. Like, I always find that depending on the situation that you've got, you know, I'm going through this kind of vintage inspired amp, I've got a very vintage inspired guitar in my hands as well. It sort of does determine what I'm playing, and certainly, you know, if I was to just play like me, which I will do a little bit in this video as well, the guitar will kind of almost determine what I'm playing. You know, it's that sort of thing. I'm doing those classic like E, A, D, you know, kind of chord progressions and all that sort of stuff as well. This guitar, yeah, like I said, it just kind of demands it. And especially, you know, I was getting that kind of quote unquote woman tone, which certainly like I've never really done before, but anybody who does speak about Clapton has that, which you'll get by rolling a bit of your volume, bit your tone down, certainly. I think that's the way that he did it. You know, it's that proper kind of like woolly, almost kind of super warm, like if you imagine like a wah kind of, you know, like stuck on a certain frequency. Because I'll show you, like I'm in the middle there, I'll put everything up and I'll play the same line. That was actually a really good example there of how much like your volume and tone can really kind of like adjust your dynamics there. Because the amp that I'm going through, as I said, is just a single volume and a single tone. I've got it dined, like proper dime. Luckily for the aux box, it's not blowing my head absolutely off right now. But that's certainly what artists would have had to do back in the day, because there, you know, there wasn't dual channel amps, and really you just had to crank them as well. So full volume on it, you know, it is proper kind of, it's not, you know, modern high gain or anything, but certainly like it is pushing quite a lot. So I guess it's time to probably talk about the history of this guitar. This 1958 Les Paul, from looking into the history of it. Eric bought this on Cream's first American tour. Used it throughout several bands that he was in at that point, but then in the 70s actually gifted it to his friend Albert Lee, very famous guitarist as well, which there's actually quite a kind of dual lineage going with this guitar, because Albert Lee apparently still uses this to this day, which I think is super, super cool, because it's, you know, these kind of two legendary guitarists who have shared, you know, this one guitar. There is actually a couple of cool things in the case, which we'll show you just in a little bit later in the video, to kind of commemorate that and also to honor both of those guitarists. But when it comes to the actual guitar itself, as you would imagine, it's the best of the Murphy Lab. It's just absolutely stunning to look at. Again, the Relic, as we've said in a few videos, maybe isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea, but one of the cool things that they have done with this particular guitar is the Gibson Custom Shop have used like 3D like tracking technology, 3D rendering I guess as well, some form of 3D technology to actually scan the original guitar for all the bumps and bruises on it. And that even comes down to the back, and even comes down to this little mark up in the headstock here as well, which let's just say there's a very specific thing that will cause that kind of burning on the headstock there. You know, this, it just feels amazing. It's, if anybody has played like a Gibson Custom Shop guitar, you know how good these are, and this is probably like the best of the best when it comes to the top tier. But I was kind of mentioning that sort of like wah frequency sort of sound when we were talking about, you know, using the volumes and the tones and all that sort of stuff. So why don't we get some wah sounds out of the Dunlop Eric Clapton wah here. Because it's gold, it sounds extra special, of course. Gotta say, I'm having a really good time playing this. It does feel absolutely incredible. But certainly the kind of amp setup here is so out of my depth. Like, certainly, like, I rely... No, actually, that's maybe against kind of, you know, I don't necessarily rely on effects and multiple channels and all that sort of stuff, but maybe I'm just more accustomed to that, and it's maybe a bit more kind of like in my wheelhouse. So maybe you might see like a guitar like this plugged into kind of the rig that I would want, but it has been a really good like experiment. And, you know, to answer the question, will it make me, you know, love blues or anything? I definitely still have the same appreciation for it, but I'm maybe not rushing out to like immediately plug into something like this. That is something that's quite interesting to say about it, is the fact that like sometimes kind of pushing yourself out of your depth will maybe make you approach the instrument just that little bit different. And certainly if you find yourself in a little bit of a rut, then this, you know, kind of like pushing yourself to a different genre, pushing yourself to a different sort of setup or something like that. It doesn't mean that you need to go, you know, down the avenue of Gibson custom shop prices and a hand-wired Marshall sort of price here, but, you know, get out of your wheelhouse, get out of your comfort zone just ever so slightly. It might help you spark some new inspiration. Let's check some of the case candy and then we'll wrap up. Starting first with this case, it's pretty wild, like kind of vintage inspired case with the Duck Bros on the front there. I don't think that number will certainly work if it is meant to be a phone number, but the Duck Bros, what I found out is that's Albert Lee and Eric Clapton, which is very fitting, obviously, considering the history of this guitar. And obviously, the guitar's there, so it's not in the case. But let's get a look at some of the candy that comes with. Super protective and super furry as well, so you be safe to know that your guitar will be totally fine. But other than the usual, you know, Gibson custom shop bits and bobs there as well, care instructions. There is a plain black guard for the electronics there as well, because there is actually a Eric Clapton specific one on the guitar itself. But speaking of specifics, we have the certificate here with a cool old photo with that specific guitar there as well, with a little bit of the history. But for any fan of either Eric, Albert, or both, this is probably going to be the kind of main sauce of the case candy here, which is a commemorative pickguard signed by both the guys, with obviously the date of the guitar, little history there, and then this cool engraving on the back. Very, very fancy for anybody who really loves the history of this guitar or both players, and of course comes with like a vintage inspired Gibson strap there as well. Guess you can have this like up on your wall somewhere or on your desk. Could be constant inspiration while you're playing the guitar, of course. So if you are still watching the video at this point, thanks for coming along with this experiment with me. Again, kind of reiterating what I said, I don't think this is really going to like, you know, change my playing ever so dramatically, but I definitely think it will kind of set myself up, you know, with different gear setups and stuff in the room, and even just in my spare time as well, because this has been a really fun experiment. And just like getting out of your comfort zone, as I said, can maybe spark a little bit more inspiration. Those limitations can actually provide you with new pastures and whatnot. But if you do want to read a little bit more about this guitar and the limited 150 models that were created, then you can click the link just down in the description. That'll take you to our website. And if this guitar is still for sale, you should be able to read all about it there. But let me know what you think about it down in the comments below, and again, give us a like and a subscribe because you can keep up with all the latest news at Guitar HQ. But until next time, I've been Kieran, and I've been looking to see if this setup will change my opinion on the blues. Didn't really, but it was still fun. Have a great day.